Hiya Hingsters, welcome back to the channel, and if you're new, welcome too. Do subscribe to my channel if you like what I do, and give this video a thumbs up if you resonate. I hope you're having a great weekend. I am filming this actually on Tuesday due day, but this will be released on Saturn Day. And yes, we are talking today about Pluto in the birth chart through all the houses as per someone's request. Thank you very much for your request for this video. And if you have any other astrology video requests, put them in the comments. And if I haven't already done a video on that topic, I will make one for you in due time. But yeah, happy Cancer season, by the way. Check out my Cancer season video, which I produced for your reference. And yeah, we're talking about Pluto the God. And of course, to know which house you have your Pluto in natally, you need to know your rising sign, and you need to know how to look at the houses and look for that glyph or symbol, which is like a kind of like a circle in a cup with a cross on the bottom. Yeah, that's Pluto, the symbol for Pluto the God. And what I'm going to do, first of all, is just talk about kind of what a lot of astrological sources say Pluto is, what Pluto means, and then I'm going to go a little deeper, and then I'm going to go through all 12 of the houses. So stay tuned for your placement. I will have timestamps produced as well at some point. So first of all, Pluto, one of the most common things people say Pluto represents in our chart for us is that Pluto is transformation. Pluto is the transformer or rules transformation. And I would say, yes, that is true in the sense of renewal, but not really in the sense of transforming or transfiguring into other things. I know that Pluto does not have the monopoly on that. We can look at Jupiter, we can look at Mercury and other gods who also would rule transformation very generally. The Plutonian transformation is more like transforming upwards, or like transforming like a snake, a dead skin for a new skin. That type of transformation we're talking about. Progression. Another big Pluto buzzword is manipulation. And to be honest, Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus, yes, they are the really far out planets, and they were relatively recently discovered. And there was kind of a bit of a rush in the astrological circles to sort of slap on meanings and interpretations to these three planets. And I emphasize that word rush. And I believe that we don't yet still understand enough about what these three planets are, and we have to do more research and reflection, and we have to look more at the synchronicities and also look into the archetypal stories and resonances before we just do this slapping on. But I also want to say that a lot has been appropriated from the traditional 7 planets and slapped onto these 3 planets, one of these 3 planets being Pluto. And we get a lot of appropriation from Mars onto Pluto. But manipulation really isn't a Plutonian thing. And you will find that the more you look into the actual stories, traditionally, the ancient accounts of Pluto, it's not really about manipulation at all. Pluto is about other things, which we'll talk about, but it's Mars, which really has that kind of monopoly. Mars rules Scorpio in traditional astrology, and Mars rules wrongdoers, wrongdoers who would do something like manipulating for ill, for bad effect. And also Scorpio is the kind of archetype very easily equated with spider spirit. So like that kind of spirit, that kind of archetype is the manipulator or puppeteer or the weaver of webs, the ensnarer of people and other spirits with web. That's Scorpio. That's Mars ruled Scorpio. That's manipulation. And also, Pluto is again very often associated with the atomic, like atomic bombs and weapons. And again, I would put that more actually as an appropriation from Mars onto Pluto. And because there's much more a Martian thing, destruction and tearing and ripping and fire and annihilation, separating, cutting, burning through, charging through. This is all Martian stuff. It's not really a Plutonian thing. And in fact, Pluto wasn't very rarely associated with things like war or like murder or annihilation. So again, it's more Martian. Now, another thing that Pluto is quite often associated with is poison, or toxicity. And I would say, yes, this is a Plutonian thing. I'll get onto that in a bit later. But yeah, that's quite Plutonian. I don't think the other traditional planets really have much of a monopoly on poison and toxicity, but Pluto does. And paranoia is another word slapped on to Pluto, but I would kind of put this back into the realm of Mars and the Mars ruled Scorpio and spider spirit. And what I mean here is in terms of the ultra sensitivity, like spiders literally have, I don't know how many, but let's say thousands of little hairs on their legs, which are super sensitive to the vibrations in the air. So it's not only, in fact, their eyes are not that great. It's more the vibrations that are felt through these hairs and that kind of sensitivity. And this is a Mars ruled thing again. And many Mars heavy people have high spidey sense. So it's not really a Plutonian thing. And then we've got generational or ancestral stuff, or what is sometimes called karma. And I would put this kind of, yes, in the realm of Pluto, but especially in the sense of like what is buried or hidden. And we're talking here about things like treasure and gold and gems and precious metals, because Pluto was not just the ruler of the underworld in terms of the souls of the dead, but also the ruler of things like gems and precious things found in or buried in the earth. Pluto is often associated with like the insidious or the creepy or the evil and stuff like horror. And again, this is really like fear of Pluto and fear of death, more importantly. And this is this is something again I'll talk about a little bit more later, but yeah, that's more about the fear of Pluto or the fear of death, and not really that Pluto rules insidious things or is so evil. There is no evil god. And then we have the association, of course, of Pluto being the ruler of Scorpio. And a lot of people are very passionate about this. They really do. If they are Scorpio rising, they really do resonate a lot with Pluto. So I'm not going to say anything. I'm a Hellenistic traditional astrologer. I don't judge or anything. But yes, I would say that some of this is, again, kind of an appropriation of Martian rulership onto Pluto, like slapping on a sign to Pluto, again, because there was this rush or feeling of a need to assign rulers to the signs, like secondary rulers, and to kind of divide the zodiac up more in terms of like one ruler for a sign. but that's not something that I resonate with in my practice. And we'll get onto that in a bit more later. And then we have death as well, very commonly associated with Pluto. And of course, this is, yeah, this is quite a Plutonian thing because Pluto is the god of the underworld and the kind of overseer or the protector of the souls of the dead. And also, this is quite a scorpionic thing, I would say, as well, quite a Martian thing in terms of killing and murder and aggressive violence. These things are quite Martian as well. Fears as well are associated with Pluto quite often. And I would kind of say that that is again also shared with Mars and the Mars ruled Scorpio. So let's get into a little more depth on Pluto. So first of all, Pluto was also known as the judge of the dead. So as I said just before, an overseer or a protector of, but this word overseer and overseeing, there's definitely that resonance with Pluto. And Pluto is also associated with wealth and abundance, something that is not always mentioned. But yes, Pluto rising people, which we'll get onto, can be very rich, basically, very abundant, very resourceful. Pluto is associated with greed as well. So, kind of wanting to keep all of the souls of the dead in the underworld, in his realm, like not wanting them to escape. There was very much this notion of once the soul has entered there, there is no escape. And invisibility or insidiousness, if that's a word. That is also a Plutonian thing, which is sometimes not mentioned, but that might be why sometimes we associate Pluto with creepiness, but it's really more that Pluto rules invisibility and items that grant invisibility. And very often we associate Pluto with subversiveness, like submarines, this type of thing. And I think that also comes from this invisibility concept that Pluto rules. Captive, obsession, and kidnap is another Plutonian thing, as well as ambush and things kind of suddenly rising up or like suddenly attacking. Sometimes Pluto is associated with volcanoes. And yeah, kind of like, but in the sense of like a sudden eruption or something unexpected, something that was thought to be dormant or was thought to be very distant or far away, but all of a sudden became very apparent, very close, and very overbearing or overpowering. That's also Pluto. Pluto is also the sealer of destinies, so very often associated with destiny, and the ruler of rivers and convergence, so where rivers meet. And there is a lot of resonance, Plutonian resonance, when we look at rivers and deltas and similar spaces and places. Pluto also was the rider of 4 black horses, or like a chariot with 4 black horses. And so there is also this dark or black horse imagery associated with Pluto. Pluto is the ruler of hatred as well. I think also that can be shared with Mars in some respect. And Pluto is the chance giver. This is something very special about Pluto, the chance giver or the fair one, the giver of a fair run. And again, you know, Pluto is very often considered like a malefic planet, and so we kind of overlook this aspect. But Pluto was the giver of a good deal or a good bargain, but it had to be fulfilled, and the conditions had to be closely read or closely adhered to. And Pluto, yes, rules poison and pain. And also, Pluto was the, or is the ruler of the, or rather, Pluto is kind of like the indifferent one, the shunned one, and as I said before, the feared one. And Pluto, it is said by historians that there were no or very few like shrines or cults to Pluto, while with many other gods we've found over the decades shrines, temples, we found evidence of cults. But with Pluto, there's only like one that I have knowledge of anyway, which was found quite recently in Turkey. And there was this sense in the ancient stories and accounts that Pluto was very much not involved in the kind of the drama of the gods or the politics of the gods, and was very kind of removed and focusing on his role in the underworld, and I think had this more indifferent stance, and only very occasionally would kind of rise up with this kind of ambush Plutonian type thing into the overworld, if you like. And I think that's probably why Pluto is associated with fear. And that's why Pluto had few cults or shrines, because people associated Pluto with death or the underworld, and there was this fear or taboo. You know, to worship a god like that is like trying to encourage or entice death, or kind of accelerate maybe your visit to the underworld. And also, we kind of see this in the scientific community and the relatively recent kind of tossing between is Pluto a planet, is Pluto not a planet, and you know, it's kind of like, is Pluto a very active, dramatic god or not? Is Pluto in the arena of the gods or not? Is Pluto here or not? It's like that kind of thing. Pluto is also associated with like the wiping of memory and clean slates and starting anew. And also, Pluto is associated with or rules limbo, so being in states of limbo or danger or precariousness. Pluto represents also the demoted one or the subdued one, but only apparently so. It's really just a god that is so heavily buried or so removed and distant, again, from the drama of things. And also, Pluto rules immortality and invincibility. And yes, we get often associations of like intense, obsessive emotions and compulsions, and like, yeah, just intense drives. That's also a very Plutonian thing, which I think comes from this rulership of invincibility. Now, one of my teachers, Meredith, over at Soul Navigation Astrology, I'll always remember her describing Pluto as kind of this god which expresses itself like this. Like there's a caterpillar, or you are the caterpillar, and obviously you have like 100 or however many legs, or you're a centipede, let's say. Let's say centipede, because people tend to fear centipedes more than caterpillars. But let's say you're a centipede, Pluto is like, you can escape or you can transform or you can progress, but before you do that, I'm gonna pull off all of your legs or you're going to have to get rid of all of your legs, and you're going to do it one by one. And so Pluto is, yes, also associated with things like torture or torturous paths, or again transformation, but in that sense of renewal and regeneration. And so really it's not really about centipede spirits or archetypes, but caterpillar spirits and archetypes, which of course enter the chrysalis and then finally like a butterfly or a moth phase. And that is also something that is very often associated with Scorpio, and hence the association of Scorpio with Pluto, or Scorpio being ruled by Pluto. But actually that's something else I talk about, I think a couple of years ago on my channel with my Pluto rising video for Sagittarius rising. I think I mentioned it there, but the butterfly archetype or the eagle archetype is really more Sagittarius. It's really more the Scorpio Sagittarius cusp in my feeling. So yeah, that's kind of Pluto the God. Very briefly, let's then have a look at Pluto through the houses. And first of all, a couple disclaimers. Please check your sign. So which sign do you have Pluto in? What is the condition of your Pluto? Is it being opposed by any planets in the natal chart? Is it being squared? Is it conjunct any other planets in the same sign? And who is the dispositor or the host of Pluto? So you need to know the sign, then look to the ruler of that sign, and then you can find the host of Pluto. And then when you look at the host of Pluto and check the condition of the host, you can see the host's ability to treat well or to not be able to treat well Pluto in that house. And of course, this is a very general video, so you need to look at the entirety of your chart and your spiritual path and situation. You can get a reading with me if you like. Look at the description below. But obviously keep that in mind as well. Not everything I list for your particular Pluto placement will resonate or relate to you. And another thing is that one thing which I agree with and what I've been learning on my course with Adam Ellenbass, very brilliant astrologer, and from Hellenistic astrology perspectives, the planets Pluto, Uranus, and Neptune can be treated a bit more like fixed stars. So less impactful or influential unless there is an exact or very close conjunction. So I would also keep that in mind, especially if you're having a real-time transit to Pluto. I wouldn't say it affects you or amplifies the themes of the house Pluto's in until that transiting planet gets very close or exactly conjunct, or is exactly opposing or exactly squaring. But anyway, enough of that. Let's get on to the first house. So this is Pluto in the first house, or Pluto rising. This is like karma's not a liar, she keeps receipts, that Katy Perry lyric. By the way, I think that's also contested, Katy Perry's Pluto placement, but Pluto rising we are seeing here. And what Pluto rising people often have is kind of like pox or marks on the face. This can even be into adulthood or even for life. Like some marks on the face, body, scars can be a prominent thing because the first house is the body, literally. And I always think with Pluto rising of like the character in the film Grease, the first one, Leo, quote unquote, crater face Balmudo, that character, and just with the car and the leather jacket as well, very Plutonian vibes with that character. But yes, Pluto rising people, Pluto in the first house people have a smoldering look. They have an intense personality. They are deeply indifferent, or they have this air or aura that they're deeply indifferent or aloof. And they might even be a creepy person or misconstrued as a creepy person or scary somehow. They can be obsessive. They can be hoarders. They can also be captivating, deeply protective. They can be greedy people. They can be hateful and toxic. And we've got people here with this placement, celebrities being Benedict Cumberbatch. We've got Justin Bieber. Benedict Cumberbatch has it in Libra, and Justin Bieber in Scorpio, and Katy Perry, yes, in Scorpio as well. But also these people, there's something inconspicuous about them or underground about them. They can be drivers of kind of harsh but true deals as well, or ideals. They can also be like to the bitter end types of people. They can be diehards. Pluto risings can be the overcomers of extreme disease as well. Or they are like the faces of serious accidents or incidents in their lives. They are often wealthy, abundant, resourceful, magnetic, compelling. And we find with Pluto rising or Pluto in the first house, assassins, cleaners, cash handlers, precious metal handlers, stone handlers, surgeons, conductors or wardens, like traffic wardens, or like airport wardens. I don't know if that's the proper like term for that job, but like, you know, the people who wave the glowy sticks at the airport in the high vis jackets, those people. Like collectors as well in some sense, and spies and surveyors and auditors and toxicologists. We've got miners, salvagers, repairers, gatekeepers, call out staff as well, and controllers and technicians. And it doesn't mean that your career is literally one of those things. You might just emanate the energies of like a conductor spirit or an assassin spirit. So it doesn't mean that you're literally Assassin's Creed protagonist, you know? Anyway, moving on to Pluto in the second house. Here we have celebrities like Stephen Fry, Johnny Depp, Bill Gates. Stephen has it in Virgo, obviously. Johnny Depp also in Virgo, and Bill Gates in Leo. Now, Pluto in the second house gives lots of resources often. It gives big spenders, big investors, big eaters, because the second house is about like what we put into things, including into our body, into our bowl, our food bowl. And it can give, yeah, gluttony as well, but also like big wealth or gains coming your way, because the second house is the house of what is coming to you, like soon or in the future. And also we have here food allergies or like intolerances that could, again, like with Pluto in the first house, be very long term or even lifelong. And we can get here with Pluto in the second house, the food obsessed, kind of big foodies. And also look, watch out for things like food poisoning as well with Pluto in the second. We get here big savers or secretive saving. We get protectionist finances. And we also get like figure fudgers. So watch out for that, maybe. We have people who are intense at work, who are workaholics. We get people who are good at sealing deals. We get people who are very persuasive. And I'm going to make a video on this as well the 2nd and 8th house axis and how that's actually the house axis. This is kind of a secret, but that's actually the house axis of work and jobs, or rather doing your job. But more on that later. But you might be interested because you have Pluto in the 2nd house and you have it on that give and take axis. But anyway, Pluto in the 2nd house can also make a kind of toxic contributor to things, like a gossiper. It can give spiteful actions. It can give corrupt actions as well. And we have Plutonian things coming your way. So it's like, try to be pure, be ready, and take responsibility for something Plutonian that is coming your way, because it could, for example, be a very big role. And Pluto in the 2nd house people may be highly organized. They may carry a weapon even, and they can be like the grower of things. Specifically, I'm thinking like mushroom farmers, weed growers, or like cultivators of something fungal. Yeah. Pluto in the 3rd house then. So we've got here Angelina Jolie, who has it in Libra, Martin Luther King in Cancer, and Drake, who has it in Scorpio. And I think for Drake, it's actually conjunct his sun, natal sun. I might be wrong, but I think it's very close to his natal sun. Anyway, with Pluto in the 3rd house, this is like Plutonian ways of communicating or relating, because the 3rd house is about how we relate and communicate. So you could communicate or relate in captivating ways. You could be pained in the way that you relate things, or impartial, or stormy, or subversive, and also refreshing in some sense. Like the insights you have, the things you have to say could be quite refreshing. Siblings as well, because the 3rd house also has siblings as one of its themes. So your siblings could be gatekeepers in some sense, judges, protectors, surgeons. They could also be toxic. They can be very strong as well, your siblings. This placement also gives Plutonian feminine divinities being more resonant for you. So this is goddesses like Hecate, the witchcraft goddess, or Ceres, or Eris, and like similar goddesses. And also this placement gives abundant surroundings. It gives also, conversely, toxic or poisonous surroundings, and it gives sketchy neighbors. By the way, the shrine that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, which I think was found in Turkey, the shrine to Pluto, it literally emitted, or the spot where it is emits like toxic gases from deep within the earth. And if you were to put like birds down there, they would die. So yeah, you get the picture of Pluto ruling that which is toxic. And also, Pluto in the 3rd house gives journeys along or over rivers and canals and deltas and tributaries, or like convergences. So I also get this image of you living like on a crossroad, some of you, or being around like the convergence, like a spaghetti junction maybe, or at the convergence of many paths, roads, or even literally lots of rivers meeting in one place. Also, there can be turmoil around you, dangerous localities, and you could be overprotective in public. And there can be problems here with memory, and or there could be an ability to make yourself or others forget things. There is also, with Pluto in the 3rd house, a fundamental skill when it comes to saving, when it comes to investing, when it comes to spending, when it comes to keeping. It's like a second nature to you, like a 101 type thing. And finally, you could have a sort of sixth sense when it comes to death or the dead or ghosts or like things hidden and also things unseen. It doesn't have to be so like woo. It could just be that you have a knack for finding missing items, lost items. Okay, Pluto in the fourth house. This is Timothée Chalamet, who has it in Sagittarius. This is Chris Brown, who's got it in Scorpio, and Meghan the Duchess of Sussex, who has it in Libra. So here with Pluto in the fourth, we've got the house or the home being where rivers meet or being somehow subterranean. Maybe you have like a -1 or even lower flat, like a basement flat. Maybe you live in someone's basement, your mother's basement. That's very Pluto in the fourth house. Now, also, you could have a deeply hidden ancestry in some sense. The past could also come creeping back for you. This also gives sudden uprisings of greed, of intensity, of obsession, hatreds, feelings of invincibility. You know, it could be like one of those characters in films who just have these uprisings, emotional uprisings, and you're kind of like, I don't know where it came from. I can't explain it. Help me, kind of thing. You just might not know at all where these kind of emotional ambushes come from. And you could also be sitting on a lot of wealth. And mothers, for some people with displacement, mothers passing or like maternal members of the family passing can equate to inheritance. And also, there can be toxic stuff beneath you. There can be gold or jewels beneath you. Obviously, that will only relate to like one or two people in the world, probably, but like something precious literally is below where you are living. Or maybe you live on like a mine, or you live like on an X mine type of thing. Also, with Pluto in the fourth, you could have a very protective nature when it comes to your roots, your home, your house, and family, especially again, maternal sides of the family or maternal figures in your family. You could be very protective of them. There's also deep feelings here of rootedness when the home or the house is renewed. And basically, what I get for some of you is like serial decorators, people who have to every so often just completely gut the place and like redecorate and replenish everything, especially if you have Pluto in Scorpio. Okay, this can also give an uncanny sense for destiny and like a serious Caesar of chances given. So you could really sense when an opportunity arises and you're able to, yeah, seize it. Finally, you may be feeling rooted in wealth and abundance, which are very Plutonian things. Okay, Pluto in the fifth house. So this is The Weeknd, who has it in Scorpio. This is Halle Berry, who has it in Virgo, and also Gordon Ramsay, who has it in Virgo. With Pluto in the fifth, we've got lots of children. We've got children having Plutonian traits or challenges. This could be maybe your kids are greedy, they are poisoned, they are hateful, they are resilient, they are indifferent or aloof, they are very rich, or they will become very rich, which is nice. They could have memory loss. There could be something very precarious about them or what they're doing or come to do. They could also be quite furtive or sneaky in some sense. And also with this placement, you could just have a lot of dogs. Pluto famously had the three-headed dog guarding the door to the underworld. And so you could be a big dog person, or you could have lots of pets. You could have lots of crystals, stones, plants, figurines, models, plushies all around your space, and they're kind of like your pets as well. You could have an intense FOMO with this placement, and here we get extreme sport junkies, we get overindulgence, we get people who have like plenty of the goodies stashed away. Yeah. We have also the abundantly rich with Pluto in the fifth. We have big donators. We have powerful donators like charity founders. We've got like celebrity philanthropists here. We have, or someone at the church or synagogue or wherever who's like always kind of flaunting their charitable nature. And we have treasurers as well, treasurers of charities, treasurers of companies, like accountants, like company accountants as well. And we have somebody who enjoys being a hater sometimes. We have trolls, we have like toxic mud slingers, and also the beans spiller, like people who love to let the cat out of the bag, who like to tell other people's secrets, who like to air people's laundry, you know, all those phrases. We have also here unapologetically authenticness, authenticity. We have the unaffected outsider. We have people who enjoy listening to people or enjoy watching people, and it could be with some intensity. And I have this placement as well, Pluto in the fifth house in Scorpio. And there can, for some people with this placement, be this misunderstanding that they don't care or they are aloof, but it's really just that they are more at a distance and they have more of a different role, which, like Pluto did or does, exists outside of kind of the dramaturge of the gods. And here we have also someone who loves dating, going on dates, who is a slut. But potentially, we have like casual sex here and the galore of that. We have also surreptitiously being sensual. We have also avid collectors of stuff. You know, when I was a kid, and still, I loved collecting Pokemon cards and stickers, and I was quite obsessed. And also, you maybe collect like gems or jewels or postcards or like shiny things, like I don't know, bottle caps or something, toys, trinkets, trophies. That could be just something that you take pleasure in hoarding and you won't let go of. Finally, Pluto in the fifth can make people who obsess over their creative projects. It can also get people who obsess over their children as well. So could be very overprotective of their children, kind of like Saturn in the fifth house. Here, it's not really destroying or harming the child, which Saturn might do, or consuming the child, which Saturn might do. With Pluto in the fifth house, it's just a bit more like not letting them go, not letting them escape the clutches. And this can also be like more generally in terms of creative projects. So, like writing a novel, like there's a lot of obsessive energy, or like games, playing games, which especially have themes of accruing and protecting and even death in some games. Like if it features those things, this could be quite like a big magnet for you. And also we get volunteering as well, or charity becoming a big obsessive venture for some people. Okay, sixth house, then Pluto in the sixth. We've got Miley Cyrus, who has this in Scorpio, Amy Winehouse, who had it in Libra, and Snoop Dogg, who also has it in Libra. So this gives people who are very resilient in hardship, because the sixth house is the house of bad fortune. This gives like feelings of invincibility against all the odds. And these people can be unfazed by this bad fortune. They can enjoy living on the edge. They can be the kind of like paycheck to paycheck type of person, because it kind of is about the money, but it kind of isn't as well. There's something more precarious about their life that they are also enjoying or being obsessed with. And it can also give like poison or toxicity threatening the health of the native. And you could be plagued by negative thoughts. This can give the famous intrusive thoughts. I think that's a classic kind of Platonian type thing. Also, you could be a great interviewer or someone who interrogates, even someone who examines, someone who is a judge or a board panel member. And maybe one or two of you have a lot of labor animals. There could be like a shepherd produced with this placement, or a horse rider as well. And these people can be hungry to have more people on the team, to have more employees, to have more students or more candidates. This placement can also, with Pluto in the sixth, give memory problems. And interestingly, it can also produce like youth workers but specifically youth workers who are rehabilitating, or any kind of rehab type of work where you are above someone who you are trying to rehabilitate or help or heal or give renewal to or give another chance to. That's very Plutonian. Maybe you could be like a PTSD therapist or someone who works in the like immediate response to or treatment of trauma. And finally, you could be like, for someone with displacement, you could be someone who finds it hard to start anew, or someone who finds it hard to progress or to climb the ladder in terms of the career. But I think in the end, it works out for you, because the sixth house does make a trine to the 10th house of career and calling. So eventually you get there if you are tapping into that Plutonian resilience. Pluto in the 7th house then. So here we've got Barack Obama, who's got it in Virgo, Whitney Houston, Virgo, and Jane Fonda, who I love, who has it in Cancer. Now, okay, let me take a little drink, sippy. With Pluto in the 7th, we've got partners, because the 7th house is the house of marriage and partnerships. So your partners were, or they are, or they will be, or all of the above, they are like somehow Plutonian. So this can be that they're super sexy, maybe they're greedy, maybe your partners are obsessive, they are intense, they are rich, maybe they are very responsible, they take on a very powerful role, perhaps. Also, you could have some obsessed enemies or haters. And also, by the way, going back to partners, there could be this very strong sense that you possess of your partners being destined, and feeling like bound to your partners, even if that includes exes, or feeling bound to forging intense bonds with people. And that can be in the romantic and the non-romantic senses. Also, this placement gives wealthy business partners. So if you are a business person, you could have wealthy business partners, or business partners who are very good at being impartial, who are very good at, yes, accruing resources, and who may well be quite powerful business partners, allies to get with. And also, this placement gives like big ass weddings, the kind of really showy weddings. It can give intense celebrations. And also, I get this feeling of it being something where things like funerals and ancestral rites are somehow big for you or important to you. And this can be a placement for making a nice, fair deal with other people. It could be this very intense ability. But as I kind of mentioned at the beginning, there has to be a careful observance of the agreements. This is crucial. If we look at the stories of the god Pluto and kind of the deals made with other figures in these stories, it's like, yes, you can get out of the underworld, but only if ... And in most cases, the condition is not met. But the offer was very fair and was very much there. Also, you could be harshly judged by others, but also, on the other hand, like big chances can be had from other people. So I look out for that. When people give you opportunities, give the olive branch, if you like, to look at that and maybe consider that. But read the fine print. There can be lots of enemies generally with this placement. Pluto in the seventh house can give lots of partners. It can give polyamory. It can give like shared marriages or open marriages. Also, other people can kind of captivate you. They could scare you as well in some sense. And finally, you could have a world view which is more aware of things like death and the afterlife and like the cost of things. And you could be very much a person who is in tune with the give and take when it comes to engaging with others and meeting people in the middle. So you could be a very strong, intense negotiator as well, or balancer. Eighth house, then Pluto in the eighth house. So yes, I have to mention this one. Adolf Hitler had this placement in Gemini, but so did Diana, Princess of Wales, have it in Virgo, and Elvis Presley had it also in Cancer. So Pluto in the eighth gives, for some, coveting other people's resources. It gives control of your partner's stuff, your partner's money, assets sometimes. It gives like this thing where the results of your bad deeds or intentions can come back at you quite painfully, so quite harsh retributions and rebuttals if you're intentionally doing naughty things. And it can give slothfulness, it can give carelessness, it can give people who spoil the nice things, it can give like squandering. And also, this placement very often produces therapists, advisors, counselors, healers, people who work in debt, like helping people get out of debt. Also, it gives prosecutors, judges. We can get here also account managers and treasurers and private investigators. We get embalmers, so anyone who works in some kind of like death or end related thing, funeral parlor staff, grief counselors, also upcyclers, so people who take other people's stuff and renew it or transform it, right? Remember at the beginning I said one of the big buzzwords for Pluto is transformation. So people who take other people's stuff, because that's the eighth house, other people's stuff, and they make it into something new, which is pretty cool. And we get here reinvestors as well. So people who take something like property or money and they reinvest it into something else or turn it into something else. We get bailiffs as well with this placement. We can get people who, with Pluto in the eighth house, are obsessed over the future. And finally, you could be someone who has like serious bonds with others, or you forge like very important bonds. And maybe you make like big oaths and powerful promises, or maybe you are fulfilling a big role eventually that has some kind of need for you to protect something or someone. And it also gives like keeping, it gives the processing of things and people, or the processing of other people's stuff as well. So that's Pluto in the eighth. Pluto in the ninth, then. So we're back in Sussex because Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, has this lovely placement, and he has it in Scorpio. Robin Williams also had it in Leo, and Björk, my favorite Scorpio ever, yeah, who I always mention on my channel, especially around Scorpio season, but she has it in Virgo. So Pluto in the ninth house, then, it gives religious zealots, tyrannical optimists, you know, those spiritual people who are very like intensely like, it's gonna be okay. You just need to unlock this chakra and everything will be fine. And who very much always have an optimistic, hyper positive solution or dogma this is Pluto in the ninth house. This is like the doomsday preacher as well. This is nihilism. The ninth house does pertain to philosophies, so we can get like the nihilistic philosopher. We get people who are obsessed with what I call the right way. We get resilient faith, and we get underground cults or people who are in some kind of underground or secret club. This could be many things, but something like secret that is also relating to something you believe quite passionately in, or you have a lot of faith in. Also, these people can get bitten by the travel bug big time. It can also give death related pilgrimages or like a purposeful journey you have to make abroad in your life because of somebody's death. Or maybe like a celebrity or other famous or big figure passes away and you go on some pilgrimage to pay homage to them because they've had such an influence on you and your life and your right way. And you know, the ninth house really is the house of guiding lights. That's what I would associate it with. Um, Also painful journeys. So I don't know, maybe you need to take a journey abroad or very far away to get some really important surgery. That could be like a highlight of your life. And also with Pluto in the ninth, we get uncles or teachers and guides who are somehow Plutonian. So maybe they are obsessive or greedy or rich or toxic, or somehow very fair. And we have here moving far away as well, or moving abroad to start anew. For some people, this is like new identities forming. Maybe you just want to like experience your spirit and your life in a different way. Maybe you are moving for witness protection reasons. That's Pluto in the ninth house as well. Maybe you are also, or you will come to be a worshipper of Pluto and or similar gods. And you could finally be like a very good omen reader, fortune teller, astrologer, a risk assessor as well, or some kind of intermediator, especially if this intermediary dynamic involves traveling further away or abroad. Okay, Pluto in the 10th house. We've got Ariana Grande, who has it in Scorpio, and this I love because this one actually trines my ascendant in Cancer. Yeah. And we have the artist formerly known as Prince, who had it in Leo, and also Zendaya, who has it in Sagittarius. So Pluto in the 10th gives, of course, a Plutonian reputation. The 10th house is very often associated with reputation, career. It's kind of like the LinkedIn or Instagram house in the chart. So this is like an abundant reputation, or people know you to be somehow abundant, like blossoming, blooming intensely. You could be known to be obsessive, strong, indifferent, intense, deeply truthful, judgmental, greedy, or toxic in some sense. And the family as well for you, especially the paternal sides or figures of the family, could be rich, or they could be toxic or resourceful, very powerful. Something Plutonian is going on there. And in terms of the career or the calling, it is quite likely going to be something Plutonian. So we get here surgeons, we get spies, keepers, treasurers, accountants, advisors, processors, upcyclers, archivers, collectors. And again, it doesn't mean that this is necessarily your literal job. It could just be that this is kind of your calling in the sense of that is how people see you in your group or in your community. You're somehow kind of embodying the spirit of a surgeon or the spirit of a spy or the spirit of a keeper, for example. And ancestry then could also be put on a pedestal somehow for you, or you're very interested in making your ancestry very public. Maybe there is something famous or infamous when it comes to your history or your ancestry. And you could be obsessed about making big changes because the 10th house is an angular house. It is the house of big change or praxis. And you could have this like tenacious, resilient nature, even in the toughest of times. And that is also how you may be reputed in your community or circle, your life, in your kind of biography. People might be like, wow, that person was strong even then, or even in that particular episode. Also, you could be like a risk taker when it comes to your career or your jobs. You could be also someone who's kind of stuck in their job or in their role. Remember, Pluto rules like limbo. So some people with Pluto in the 10th house can have this sense of being stuck tortuously in a particular job or career. Finally, children, because the 10th house is also actually associated with children. Children can become rich or powerful. They may somehow be resourceful, or they play like an important role in the world. And I don't mean literally that they become like the president. It could just again be in your local community, in your smaller world, in your world. They take on some very important role. The 11th house, so Pluto in the 11th, we have Albert Einstein, who had this in Taurus, Frida Kahlo, who had it in Gemini, and Lord, who has it in Scorpio. I saw Lord here in London quite a few years ago. She was great. But Pluto in the 11th, then, the house of friends, right? And allies and wishes and all the good stuff rained down on us, right? The house of good spirit. This gives an abundance of friends, allies, of contacts to help you achieve your dreams. And this makes you quite often the judge or the Plutonian member of the group. Maybe you're known as the intensely fair one, the ultimate decider as well, or the ultimate overseer in the group. Maybe you're the one who's like in charge of making sure everyone gets home safely after a party or a night out. And there can also for you be this feeling of invincibility when it comes to pursuing your wishes and your goals. You could be like an abundantly good spirited person. This is something that is not often associated with Pluto, but it could bring an abundantly good spirited person in the 11th house. You could be like actually the life and soul of the party. And you could be like the solid sentry of the group as well. This can give people who infiltrate groups easily. Again, we have a placement potential here for spies, civil servants, detectives, moles, like mutiny members, double agents even. And also Pluto in the 11th can give, if we're not careful, a poisoning of this good spirit, and it's kind of like becoming bored due to greed creeping in, or an exhaustive obsession creeping in. The 11th house is the joy of Jupiter, and Jupiter is about like not just abundance and all the great, amazing, big, happy, benefic things that we get granted, but it's about being grateful for all of those things as well, and taking on a serious, responsible energy when we have all of these things on this big plate. When we're not honoring this joy of Jupiter in the 11th, things can creep in. And with Pluto in the 11th, then it gives a creeping in of this poison of greed. Also, kind of similar to the North Node in the 11th house. It can give too much of a pursuit for more and more good stuff, and not enough like smelling the roses, not enough appreciation. And it can make things very exhaustive and just obsessive. And maybe you actually lose a lot of the stuff that you got, or you lose a lot of the friends that you got, and it kind of repeats in this cycle. Also, with Pluto in the 11th, big chances can be given to you in life to make your dreams come true. So I would seize any opportunity. If you get an opportunity that is quite potentially life-changing, just say yes to it and roll with the intensity, roll with the abundance. This could well be someone who like wins the lottery. This is like jackpot energy, potentially. Finally, Pluto in the 11th can be like someone who always kind of gets what they want, even when it seems like they negotiated or backed down. So yeah, that's the 11th house for Pluto. Okay, finally, 12th house. Pluto in the 12th. Kurt Cobain had this in Virgo. Frank Ocean has this in Scorpio. I love Frank Ocean so much. Virginia Woolf had this as well in Taurus. I always remember like years ago thinking how like barren Frank Ocean's Instagram was. I remember when I went on it years ago and I was like, he only has like one photo. He's like so big and famous and his music is so powerful and deep and there's a lot of Scorpio energy. But yeah, he's just so like not on the social media. Anyway, yes, Frank Ocean has Pluto in the 12th house as well. And this can be people who are placed far away in some sense to fulfill a role or an important responsibility in their lives. This can bring problems with money or like an abundance deficit. This can bring lots of self-sabotaging or a kind of exposing, like self-exposing spirit. And it can bring like, there can be for people with Pluto in the 12th, an underlying greed or an underlying like obsession or like predations. It can produce controllers, stalkers and spies. And this again is kind of like, it's very unconscious or creeping behind you, or like it's like a trip wire, so you may not even know that it is what it is until later, or until you get more in touch with your Pluto placement. Also, Pluto in the 12th can bring plenty of astral travel, plenty of kind of like fly on the wall dreams. So let me know in the comments if you have this placement, if you've had any kind of crazy or interesting Plutonian 12th house dreams. I'd love to hear if you're willing to share. Also, Pluto in the 12th can bring those who suffer from poison in some sense, or toxicity, or scars, or terminal illness, because the 12th house is the house of suffering and illness. And ancestry here can somehow, for some people, be lost or very far away, or there's some sense of the ancestors, the ancestry, the line being cursed. This also produces exceptional fighters, despite this bad spirit, because this is the 12th house, right? Ooh, 12th house of bad spirit. Exceptional fighters through that bad spirit, through that suffering. This is like Christina Aguilera, fighter energy, like fighting through or despite the alienation, and fighting even though the person is in exile. Finally, Pluto in the 12th house can mean that things like dreaming, taking drugs, or being high in some sense, and also like really bathing in, listening to, basking in music, like dipping into the waters of artists. This kind of thing can really help you erase bad memories or numb bad memories. It can be very important to you and your spirit. And sleep as well is like super important for this sort of spiritual renewal and for your protection. So that's what I have for Pluto through the houses in the birth chart. Let me know in the comments where you have Pluto, and let's talk a little bit about it. Have a lovely weekend, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.